Today is the 9th of July 2005. I'm in Mali in West Africa, where I've come to see the biggest mud building in the world, the great Mosque of Djenné, an astonishing sight. Driving up here yesterday, the mobile phone rang, and I heard that 7 bombs had exploded in London that morning. Hundreds were injured, scores were dead, the handiwork probably of Al-Qaeda. Among the stations that were bombed was the one my daughter uses to go to school. I spent a horrible couple of hours battling with lousy phone connections, finding out she was all right. You think dark things at moments like that, and I fretted about this film. Was it right to be making it? It's about the wonders of Islamic art, but was that still an appropriate subject? I knew the answer long before I arrived here and saw that. I had just spent months and months crisscrossing the Islamic world, and everywhere I'd been, I'd seen fascinating and beautiful things. Some of the most fascinating and beautiful things I had ever seen, made by fascinating, beautiful people who had never shown me anything but kindness, friendship, and hospitality. Not to have made this film would have been utterly dishonest. Some think Islam's an inflexible religion, fixed, unsmiling, doctrinaire. And in some places, these days, it is. But the story told by its art, the true story of Islam, is one of extreme nimbleness and constant change. When it crossed the Sahara and plunged into the deserts of West Africa, when it got to here, Mali, look how superbly it adapted to local conditions. All the larger mosques around here are exactly a day's journey apart. They're like mystic petrol stations, spaced carefully along the trade routes. This is the biggest of them, the Great Mosque of Djenné. It looks ancient, doesn't it? Venerable. But actually, it was built in 1907. This is a 20th century building. Djenné is the oldest known city in the whole of the sub-Sahara. It's even older than Timbuktu, its sister city further up the Niger. Djenné, they tell us, was settled in the 3rd century BC, but Islam only reached here in the 14th century, brought by the Arab traders who'd crossed the Sahara and decided, quite understandably, not to return. Legend has it that the first king of Djenné who converted to Islam knocked down his palace to build a mosque instead. Not this actual building, an earlier one on the same site, which survived here for 500 years before crumbling back into desert dust. This particular version of it was built when the French were here, and it's the largest mud structure in the world. In all the old books about it, you'll read that the French were responsible for its planning and its construction. But that's a typical piece of colonial rewriting. It's simply not true. The latest research agrees that from the baked and holy ground it stands on to those dinky tips of its minarets, this is an entirely African construction. If French engineers had measured out this courtyard, they'd surely not have come up with the creative parallelogram followed by this ground plan. This is not a shape that exists in European geometry. Fantastical, looming, unlikely. No European imagination could ever have come up with this. Its outlines, its colours, its sheer inventiveness are so obviously from around here. The Great Mosque of Djenné is a giant tribute to an unmistakably local look. It's made entirely from mud bricks. This entrance to the courtyard is said to look like a giant mask. You go in through the mouth and see those minarets with the ostrich eggs spiked into the top. They're said to symbolize purity and fertility. And they also protect the tips of the towers at their most vulnerable point against the enemy which all these mosques of Mali most fear: rain. Thus, the Great Mosque of Djenné combines the needs of Islam with more ancient and endemic needs of the local population. The inside is cool and dark in the preferred Djenné manner. Star-shaped holes in the roof create a charming internal sky. We had to use a local cameraman to get our shots of the inside. Westerners aren't allowed in anymore. In 1996, a French fashion magazine filled the mosque with half-naked models showing off some latest designs. I suppose I'd better not name that disgraceful magazine, but it's habitually and crudely interested in the latest vogues. Every village in the area has a mini-mosque featuring fabulous variations on the Djenné style. They're all different, of course, but they share a common enemy: water. Every time the rains come, once a year, huge slabs of exciting mosque are washed away. But instead of complaining about it, or bemoaning their lot, the people around here see it as an annual opportunity to come together, celebrate and renew. Every spring, Djenné throws a replastering party when everyone gets together to make new mud and splatter it about. And in this village too, everyone joins in annually for this splendid replastering of their mosque. It's a giant mud beano and looks fun, but it also signals an interestingly different architectural attitude, a trust, a glorious trust in incompletion. None of the mosques around here is ever considered truly finished. All of them are ongoing projects, living buildings. And because every year they're replastered from scratch, every year is seen as a new beginning, a fresh start. And that is an excellent architectural approach. I love the mud beauty of Mali. It's such a pared-down form of Islam and shows so clearly how adept Islam was at adapting to different terrains as it poured across the world, gathering up huge armfuls of new international converts. So I love the mud mosques.